I'm saying? The remixes on the 12s.
Yes.
And there's joints that people ain't never heard that's on the 12s.
On the 12s. Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So yeah, that's why I do it.
So most of these are all 12s.
Most of them.
In alphabetical order, all 12s.
Yeah.
What era do you like look for? Because I look for like 90s, 2000s.
So I'm 88 to 96. How you doing? I'm Marcus Paskel, aka Dane. I'm 45 years old. I'm from the west side of Chicago, but I reside in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn. What got me into digging for records was my love for hip hop and just hearing different songs on the radio and then never being able to hear them on the tape or the album. And then I realized like, oh, they're on the 12-inch because most DJs would play like the remixes of the record and you would never hear these songs again because you didn't know, oh, I have to get I'm buying the whole album. I'm not buying the 12, I don't even know what a 12-inch is, you know? So once I realized like, hey, that song that I heard the DJ play was on the 12-inch. And so I just started going from there, man, just started digging. When I'm digging, I often I'm looking for hip hop, man, from the late 80s to the early 90s, like 96, and maybe even like songs that weren't that popular, but I knew like struck a chord with me, something that I remember, or maybe a name that I heard of, or maybe a producer that I liked a lot, and he might have produced something for this guy who you just don't know who it is, but it could be a dope record. Growing up in Chicago, the sound was really house music. Chicago's a house, it's always been a house city. And it's funny because Fast Eddie, I don't even know if you noticed that I grabbed this record. But Fast Eddie was the first hip hop artist, I would say, to like kind of record something.
Yo, party people, get ready for this. This is a serious song that can't be missed. It's not hip hop or hop hip, it's hip house. Get ready, cause I'm about to turn it out. Let the acid take control of your mind, your body, your soul. 1, 2, 3, 4.
But it was a Chicago artist, and he was rapping. So he was meshing both genres. And I just remember going to high school in 90. Like all the older guys were still house heads. They were, they were dressing how I like they were wearing the jabots, the flower shirts with the beads. They were house cats. They weren't really into hip hop, but I was a hip hop guy. I didn't really like house like that. What introduced me to that sort of, at the time we would call it like like Daisy Age music or whatever, just like the hippie music of the hip hop. I had an older cousin, we called him Lil Larry, and he introduced me to all the hip hop. And he, being in Chicago, we would get stuff from everywhere. Like we would get music from California, we'd get music from New York, we get music from the South. So we didn't really have any allegiance. So I remember all the Run DMC stuff we had came from him. Run DMC was my first introduction to like good hip hop. Like, there was Rappin' Duke and all them guys out at the time, who had the Daha Daha and all those those little one-hit wonders. Cause everybody, it was new, it was a new genre, so everyone was trying it. But like Run DMC, I would say was like the first constant for us. And then just on the other side, NWA. I was probably 9 or 10 when I first got into hip hop. When I first got into music for real. When I first decided hey, this is what I love. And I just remember like my mother having records around the house all the time, and just listening to different music growing up. But we would whenever we go to Larry's house, like that's when we would know, like, okay, this is what's happening. Like he had the Mr. Magic mixtapes, he had the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Like I remember these. He had Davey D. Like I remember all this stuff. This was 80. Everything that came out on Def Jam, he had. Growing up in our household, it was mainly my mother who played the music. My grandmother had a big record player, like one of those big ones with the speakers attached to it. You lift the top up, and it was probably, man, maybe 400 or 500 45s. The sounds of the Motown and hip hop meshed for me, I would say, just by listening to different beats and hearing how to produce a sample stuff that I remember being played. And again, like it wasn't like she was really playing it a lot, but you just remember certain things. I would say Dane Ford was really like one of my main influences to hip hop. Like he was a graffiti artist. All his shirts were airbrushed. He would do them himself. And then he was like, nah, it's his crew out of New York, Shirt Kings. I was like, nah, I know the Shirt Kings, like, because I listened to MC Lyte. And MC Lyte, you know, the Shirt Kings, like she was pumping them up. And they had, like everything they wore was done by the Shirt Kings. So yeah, I would say definitely Dane Ford, man. That was my man. So when I started to buy records, there was only a few shops in Chicago. Dusty Grooves was one. There was another one in Hyde Park. I forgot the name of it, but Dusty Grooves, I would say I bought my first record from Dusty Grooves, and it may have been a KRS-One. No. What was that record? I don't even remember what the first record was, but because I bought a few at the same time. But it was definitely a Buckshot and a KRS-One somewhere mixed in. In 2012 is when I decided that, look, I'm gonna go ahead and get my collection tight. And I remember I started out with maybe one crate, and then it just grew. And I actually, some of the records my mother had, like that we didn't give away, like I brought some of them with me too. The Eric Clapton record, I definitely like the cover, and then I like who Clapton was. I wasn't really hip. Like, I'll be lying if I say, oh, I grew up listening to Clapton. No, I didn't grow up listening to Clapton. That wasn't my thing. I was a fan of. I was like any other kid. I liked the Beatles because that's what they were playing. That's the videos. They had a cartoon. Everyone was Beatles crazy. So yeah, like I liked the Beatles like everybody else. But once I realized like Clapton was a real soul guy and he had a specialty, and I was like, okay, cool. Let me just see what this sounds like. My first Technique 1200, I believe it was the one on the left. It was the one on the left. I got that one, I would say, in 2014. And then my wife bought me the other one from Turntable Lab. And they kill you. That one was 800. And we got Danny Brown on here. We got some couple good artists on here too. this version is not on the album, but this is the version all the DJs play. And as a kid, it messes you up because you're like, man, I want to hear this shit. You know what I'm saying? I want to hear this version. And just
Listen to this disc jockey's introduction to Melodani's Lazy Gun.
and my favorite posse cut. Didn't have a song out yet.
Hello, it's the soul, trooping in with the jungle patrol, and this one's about the KOs, the knockouts out there who I call my buddy. Now just wait, we're gonna talk about buddy on this plate, but before we let the herd out the gate, make sure all the members are straight. The jungle, the brothers, the brothers.
Once again, Audiophile, thanks for coming through, hanging out with your boy, Great Dane. I appreciate you guys, man. Again, we played some great 12s, and I hope you guys had fun, man, checking out the crib, listening to the sounds, understanding what a guy from Chicago can do a little bit. And again, man, peace and blessings. It's your boy.